Hello everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll, creator and owner of Building Better Brains, and I help children to overcome reading, learning, and behavioral challenges so that they can become happier, more motivated, and confident kids. And as parents, do we want anything more? So today I want to share with you my top 3 tips on how you can help your child to thrive. So as an educational therapist and nutritionist, I work with a lot of children who have difficulties with learning, focus, and self-regulating everything from emotions to their behavior. And one thing I have come to witness on a daily basis is the profound changes that can happen when the brain is properly nourished and properly stimulated. So regardless of what diagnosis your child has or what they're struggling with, there is so much that can be done. The most recent research on the last 2 decades really in neuroscience has shown the brain is plastic and has an incredible ability to change and to heal. I have seen severely dyslexic students learn to read, and I've had one student, for example, last summer could read 5 words. He was 12 years old, and within 3 months he went up 15 reading levels. And an autism spectrum child I worked with as well who was nonverbal, and within about 4 to 5 months he spoke after about 13 to 14 years. So without further ado, my first tip to improve your child's brain development and cognitive health is to know that your child's biochemistry is their brain chemistry, and it is heavily influenced by the food that they eat, nutritional deficiencies, toxicity, undiagnosed food allergies, as well as the bacteria in their gut. So if I have one tip on how you can help your child improve their biochemistry and therefore their brain chemistry, it is to eat as much real, unprocessed food as possible. Ditch the sugar, the excess grains and carbohydrates, and make sure you're getting plenty of protein and veggies crowded out with all the good stuff, as well as food that have lots of omega-3. So also start every morning with a protein and a fat, because 65 to 70% of your child's brain is fat, and protein and fat in the morning is very, very good for kids, particularly if they have learning and behavioral challenges. Number 2 is go back to your roots. So one reason there is an increase in learning and behavioral challenges among children today is that their brains are not developing in the same way because they are not doing the same exercises, activities, and games that were once a hallmark of being an infant or a child. So if you have an infant, make sure they are getting lots of tummy time, and the creeping, crawling, and all those minor movements that seem so insignificant in the first year of life is actually what essentially develops those lower brain levels that makes good cognition possible. So obviously, I'm going to mention, I'm sure you've heard this and you know this, but less screen time is the next place to start with primary children and all the way up, including ourselves, for better brain health. Also, as part of that is the varied movement. So letting kids do free play and playing outside as they get older. Tummy time is great when they're younger, and then we want them doing all those activities that help with developing the lower brain levels. So all the stuff that kids used to do that they don't seem to be doing as much: climbing, balancing, jumping, rolling, crossover type exercises or movements like you see in dance, all very, very, very important. So you don't need to coach them. You just send them outside and that's what they're going to end up probably doing, right? So to improve cognitive function, that kind of, you have to keep in mind that cognitive function is something that develops in layers. The brain is not a bucket. You can't just fill it with information like with phonics and times tables. Certainly we want them to know those things, but if the right groundwork is not laid, then the information cannot get in, cannot stay in, and the result is going to be poor processing, as well as possible reading disorders, learning disabilities, and ADHD, and all kinds of other stuff we don't want. So on top of real foods and letting children play and develop naturally, education that actually contains exercises and activities that are now unfortunately being considered old school or unnecessary in the school system actually has a lot of wisdom and is backed by research on how the brain develops. So, for example, cursive handwriting helps to connect the right and left hemispheres of the brain and improve fine motor skills. And fine motor skills is something that virtually every teacher in the country has noticed is seriously underdeveloped in kids today. But unfortunately, this cursive handwriting is just completely disappearing, not only from our school system, but from our culture. So go beyond the curriculum. It is about balance, but do some of the old school stuff. Word searches, connect the dots, and mazes all help to improve eye tracking and visual discrimination that is needed for decoding and reading comprehension. Also, so part of the kind of going to the old school memorization of facts, prayers, poems, times tables, and anything of that sort improves working memory. So this is a brain function that research has found to be very low in 90% of children with learning disabilities, which should really come as no surprise since poor working memory affects processing, reading comprehension, ability to follow instructions, and carry out tasks. So very, very important that we don't just say, well, information is everywhere, we don't need to memorize anymore. And lastly, boredom. So this is actually good for your child to some extent because it teaches them to stick through mundane tasks, not to give up too easily, to maintain attention, and boredom actually precedes creativity. So if you're always being entertained, scheduled, and stimulated, then you cannot get creative because creativity is what is on the other side of boredom. So if you want to learn more about what you can do to help improve your child's cognitive health and help them get to their full potential, then you can learn more by hopping on my website. I have a great ebook on there, some booklets, and tons of other articles. And my website is www.lorrainedriscoll.com. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.